Like, I can already feel like you guys are gonna like do cool stuff.
Into the motive.
Just being good to one another.
Yeah.
You guys are doing a good thing here.
The people at the top collaborate, and the people that are at the bottom compete.
Yeah, it resulted in me shooting him.
I was charged with 109 and a 50.
Ultimately, you'll get to where you want to go if you push yourself enough.
I genuinely love this conversation.
I love the Motive Podcast.
Welcome back to the Motive Podcast. I'm your host, Leo Kosuch, and alongside me is my co-host, Cole Cuccinata. And joining us today, guys, a very special guest. You can see we are not in our usual studio. A trial lawyer and head of the Beasley Firm, one of the most recognized and awarded law firms in the country, aviation enthusiast, and one of the few civilian pilots qualified to fly World War II era aircraft, including his P-51 Mustang, which will overlay in this podcast. Guys, please welcome to the podcast, Jim Beasley. Jim, thank you for being here.
All right, thanks for having me.
So you flew in today from Pittsburgh, you said?
I did.
How was that flight? What were you doing out there?
I had a hearing that morning.
Okay.
So, just put it on and get out there and
that's awesome.
Finish and come back.
Do you find yourself? Do you fly like your World War II era aircraft like around like a lot, like per usual? Like if you had to go somewhere, you take in the Mustang a lot of the time? What is up, guys? We are taking a quick break in today's episode to let you know this episode is sponsored by taildraggers.com. Taildraggers.com is an online marketplace and community dedicated exclusively to tailwheel aircraft. Whether you're looking to buy or sell a classic Cub, a rugged backcountry bush plane, or a high-performance aerobatic machine like a P-51 Mustang, Taildraggers.com provides a focused marketplace tailored to tail dragger enthusiasts. Not a tailwheel pilot yet? Discover the Tailwheel Flight Training Directory. Click any state on the interactive map to find tailwheel schools and CFIs offering tailwheel endorsements. Join the Tailwheel Pilot Association feed built by and for tailwheel pilots. Taildraggers.com was founded by aviators with a passion for tailwheel aircraft. The platform serves as a dedicated hub for the tailwheel community. Now, back to our knowledge-packed episode with Jim Beasley.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, you got to keep them running,
Right.
And we're fortunate that Jack Roush has come in and done a lot of the work for the engine, making FAA-approved parts, pistons, rings, camshafts, blah, blah, blah. So the time between overhaul and the engine's basically been doubled.
Right.
And so you're not jonesing for parts like you might otherwise be.
Okay.
And you got to keep them flying. I mean, you got to keep it lubricated and seals moist and.
Right. What are some of the common issues that you face in your years of ownership with aircraft like this? Like, has anything stood out of it's such a pain in the ass or anything like that on certain planes?
Not really. Well, I mean, maybe you bring Rich up here and you can talk to him about the Spitfire. No, but like anything else in life, you got to stay ahead of it.
Right.
And with the Mustang and the Merlin in particular, every 25 hours, valve adjustment, oil change, and just really doing a front to back. We change the plugs every 25 hours just because, like when I came back, she's barking a little bit.
Okay.
So I can tell one of the plugs is probably a little boogered up.
Okay.
But it's just, just got to stay ahead of it.
Right.
So all 5 of those out there, they're your aircraft?
There.
Okay. So you must be flying pretty frequently, yeah?
Not as much as I like. I got to figure out a way to pay for it before I can do it all the time.
Yeah, I'm sure. How many hours have you put up in the last year? Not that many.
In the last, I think 3 years, I probably have put up 75 hours, which is yeah. So I'm not flying.
Yeah.
At all.
Yeah, I got you. Well, before we keep getting into aircraft and aviation and everything, I want to talk about, obviously, like, let's rewind way back to tell us a little bit about your life story. I know you grew up, your father founded the firm. Could you tell us a little bit about growing up around your father, his influence on you, the firm, everything?
Yeah, sure. So my dad he was in the Merchant Marine in the North Atlantic in World War II and then was in subs in the Pacific afterwards. And like so many other guys in the GI Bill who would, like he forged his birth certificate like a bunch did in order to get into the service. So he got in the service, got out, didn't have a high school degree, and was just doing odd jobs. But went back to college and kind of got himself back into aviation because when he was a kid, he grew up in Mississippi. So he would go to the local airports and wash the planes like everybody still does today just to get rides and whatever. And then once he finished all his education and started working, he had a little bit of money and he went out and bought like a Piper Pace or Tri-Pacer, and then we had a Cessna 182 and then an Aerostar. but I was kind of along the lines with the airplanes. As a little kid, I was always building models. I mean, I must have built 10 Mustang models before I was 8. And there were 2 that were for sale in Cape May. And one of them's in the UK. One of them is ain't misbehaving right now, that lives down south. And they were for sale, and I was like 8 years old. And I was like, man, you got to get that. And he's like, what am I going to do with that? I'm like, what are you not going to do with it? Just, I mean, come on. And it was like, I think it was 60 grand. And he was like, nah, I'm not going to do that. And then they were still there for sale in 77 down at Cape May. Now they're 75 grand. And I was like, what are you doing? You got to get it. He's like, what am I going to do with it? And but then we were flying across the country in his Aerostar. He had some type of lawyer conference or whatever in San Diego. And I persuaded him to take a left to Texas to go down to Harlingen to go to the CAF. And they had all the cool planes. But in one of the hangars was a civilian painted Mustang. It was black, white, and red, and it was N51JB. And this is in, late 70, early 78, maybe like spring of 78. So I just turned 11, and I was like, "Come on, man, it's got your initials on it.
Yeah,
you got to get it." And so it turns out that a fellow named Junior Birchinall had owned it and registered in the 60s, because it came from Nicaragua. It was in Europe part of it was in Europe for a little bit, Ohio Guard down in Nicaragua. And then they brought them up, bunch of Mustangs up in the 60s. So Birchinall had it, and he registered as 51JB, and then he sold it to a guy named Jesse Baker, who owned it. And then from there, he had put it up for sale, and then my pop bought it from Jesse Baker, because it's got the initials, it had a spare engine, and I mean, it was a screaming piece of crap. I mean, it needed like 2+ years overhaul. Okay. Yeah, it had like garden hose for fuel lines. I mean, it was a kind of 70s hillbilly, whatever. And it was a former racer, but it was cool. So he got that, and then that went to Chino to get overhauled. And in 79, he bought the SNJ that we have outside, kind of to get himself used to more heavy tail draggers. He was good with Cubs and things like that. So that's kind of how it started. And then my dad taught me to fly. I soloed the 182, but he really taught me to fly in the SNJ at Northeast Philly.
And how old were you when you started flying?
Well, I soloed. I started flying. Just getting this big.
Okay.
I used to get terribly airsick, and that slowed it down. But I think I first soloed when I was, 18 or something.
Okay.
18, something like that. And then I soloed the T-6 when I was, 19, maybe 20. I don't remember, something like that.
Okay. And right now you have your private rating?
I have a commercial multi-engine instrument with aerobatic waivers and things like that.
So the whole 9 yards.
I don't have an ATP.
Okay.
And I'm very close to my CFI.
Okay. Very nice.
So separate from aviation, I want to get into, so how was life growing up like around like such a prominent figure like your father with the law firm in Philadelphia, being in that world? Did that make you want to get into law? Did you want to get into law as a young kid? Did you want to stay away from that? Like what was life growing up as a child around that environment?
Well, he was, he was a challenging guy. Mm-hmm. The older he got, I kind of, as a joke, like the older he got, the smarter he got. But the reality is I was probably not as much of a jerk off as I should have been. But, as we got older, we got, we did get a little closer. But I had no intentions of being in law school. I went to, I screwed up. I got kicked out of Penn Charter and, that kind of stuff, for stupid things. Nothing bad, just, like being a jerk off in friends meeting and, that kind of stuff.
I got you.
Yeah, class clown kind of stuff. But then I went to Temple, and I ended up studying molecular biology, and I studied that, and I got a minor in history. And then I went to Penn for medical school, and my intention was to do research, because they had just started this thing with a fellow named Wilson. But I'm just not a laboratory person.
Yeah.
And so my wife and my girlfriend then, but wife now, went to Temple Medical School. So we would study at his office. And he had all kind of cool cases. I mean, he was always in court, but always just really some pretty bitchin' stuff. And I was like, man, this is kind of cool. And, the fact that I didn't want to be in a laboratory. I mean, I wanted to do the lab stuff, and I like it. It's still really cool, like all gene therapy and, all the stuff going behind that. But I'm just not that.
Right.
And then with my wife, girlfriend then, but wife going into obstetrics, it would have been too much if I went into surgery.
Right.
So then I just kind of switched my focus from research to, I went over to law school. And so I finished medical school, and then I just went right into law school at Penn.
Okay. And I know the law school at Temple is named after Beasley, correct?
That's correct.
What did that mean to you when you saw the school get renamed? Is that?
I went there. I have a master's in trial advocacy from Temple.
Okay.
I got that a couple years after I graduated law school. It's great. He was, he was, super old school. He couldn't get anywhere else. Temple got him in,
Okay.
let him get into, undergrad. He finished that in 2.5 years, and then he got into law school. And he was very, very connected to that place and very loyal to that place.
For sure.
So as he was getting older, he set up something there that covers, I think it's about 1/3 of all the tuitions for the law school.
Wow, it's incredible. So further down the line, being in the medical field in college, did that help you with law and handling certain cases and taking on certain cases in law relating to like medicine and stuff of that nature? Out of curiosity.
It helps understand the language.
Okay.
But the thing about being there's different kind of lawyers, obviously. There's lawyers that write wills. There's lawyers that write contracts. There's lawyers that, are criminal defense lawyers. There are lawyers that are prosecutors that prosecute alleged criminals. And then there's civil trial lawyers who are kind of the civil side of what you would look at for the criminal side. And there are people that defend civil lawsuits that are brought, and there are people that prosecute civil lawsuits that are brought. We prosecute civil lawsuits. I mean, sometimes we'll do defense work, but so we do really kind of whatever comes across the door. I mean, I'm on a legal malpractice case in Pittsburgh today. Do a fair amount of medical malpractice, but we do libel, defamation. We represent, lawyers, judges. Mm-hmm. We kind of do whatever, because I try to keep the idea of the firm was whatever the problem is, we can try to fix it, and we'll do our best to karate chop someone.
Right.
So whether it's somebody blows up in a gas explosion or, we got a, aviation, like we're one of the people on that Learjet crash in North Philly.
Okay.
We just resolved a helicopter case that crashed, helicopter crash in Kenya.
Okay.
Wow. So
Wow.
it's just,
Jeez.
whatever comes through the door, you got to figure it out.
Right. Yeah, so we were researching some of the notable cases, and one thing that me and Cole were talking about before here is Smith v. Taliban was one of your more notable cases. Can you explain that whole case? And obviously you don't have to go super in depth, but we're so curious how something like that works, like versus the Taliban versus Al Qaeda across the seas. Can you explain that case to us as amateurs in that field?
Yeah. So. I mean, you guys don't remember 9/11, do you?
No.
No, none of you guys do. So I remember driving to the office, and I was on the phone with my wife in the parking lot, and I walked in to the office, and my dad's standing in front of the TV with the buildings on fire. Holy shit. And then one of the guys used to work at the office, and I were at the Irish pub. Well, let me back up. My neighbor's brother he worked at Cantor Fitzgerald, and he was on the top floor of one of the towers that got hit, and his wife was pregnant with her 6th child. And he didn't make it. And she was widowed, and the child never met her father, kind of thing. So I knew they were having real struggles. And then like 3 weeks after 9/11, right, end of September, beginning of October, one of the guys who used to work in the office and I were sitting in the Irish pub, we're just throwing back Miller Lights, and we saw on TV that Bush had frozen $250 million of Afghanistan assets. And we were like, man, we ought to sue that son of a bitch. Because we're like, however many beers in. And then I was like, oh, I forgot, my buddy's brother. So we were the first ones to file that case. We actually sued Saddam Hussein. Iraq, the Taliban, the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan, and Al Qaeda. And we had to. We didn't know where Bin Laden's cave was at that point.
Right.
So we had to get permission from the court to do basically a television advertisement on Al Jazeera and a couple of the newspapers over there to actually serve Bin Laden. So we had to get stuff, hey, you've been sued, call, and it was like all, the Islamic lettering. I don't want to disrespect anybody. I don't know exactly what they call it because there's a bunch of different languages we used. And you see like blah, 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 and James Beasley, 1125 Walnut, Philadelphia. And that was in all the papers. And we ran like TV ads, and then the court considered that they were served. We served the Republic of Iraq and Saddam Hussein we had to go through the Hague. Pretty certain we went to the Hague. Or maybe we went to the Swiss embassy because they still had people there. But the punchline of all this is that, there was everything going on with Colin Powell in Iraq with weapons of mass destruction. And so we brought the claim, we tried it in May of 2003. And we had the former CIA director as one of our witnesses. We had an expert in Middle East studies from Harvard as one of our witnesses. And so we were able to persuade the court that obviously the Taliban and all that, it's kind of obvious they were bragging about it, but we were able to persuade the court that Republic of Iraq provided material support and resources to Al Qaeda, blah, 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 in that Hussein got out because of a case about Richard Nixon, which doesn't really matter, although you'll probably be hearing about that later, some of this Trump stuff coming forward. And with Maduro, because they're trying to prosecute him for a bunch of things. But just to bring it for today's purposes, there was a case against Richard Nixon that basically came out. The president of a country has a lot of immunity, like we know that the court seems to have amplified a little bit for Trump. But I think just going forward, and I could be wrong about this, but I think when you look at what's going on with Maduro and you watch the charges they're going to be bringing, it may very well be that a lot of what they're trying to hit him with are going to be limited by U.S. versus Nixon. So just, because he's a president of a country.
Okay.
Right.
And so they give that same kind of deference to other nations. So they may have some issues with Maduro. I mean, he's not going anywhere. But that's just something to keep your eye on, that just like Trump has a bunch of immunities, they're going to have to apply, because we tried the case in Southern District of New York where he's being tried.
Right.
And matter of fact, Judge Hellerstein, who did his initial arraignment, was actually one of the judges on the 9/11 case initially.
Wow.
He wasn't the one who tried our case. We had Judge Baer try ours. But that's just a kind of a drop thing for me as you watch this Venezuela stuff go forward. So he got out, and we're still working on it, because a long story. I'm going to try to keep it short. But so after we got the judgment, then we moved to execute on it. And so we brought a claim against the Federal Reserve Bank of New York because there was still a pile of cash in there. Mm-hmm. And then it turns out it was on one of the planes at Kennedy, and then the Second Circuit, the appeal court in New York, had said, hey, you guys can't go anywhere until we figure this out. We lost that 2-1. And I think that there might have been part of the reason was they were sending money over there in like a crate, was because they wanted to, be able to track the people with the money. So there's a, national security thing that went on. But so now we're still working on it. Biden had frozen $7 billion of Taliban assets that are in the Federal Reserve, and we're up in New York fighting about that right now.
Wow.
So it's been going on forever, but it started in a bar. It started in a bar.
Yeah.
Kind of like where we are right now. Yeah, just started in a bar.
2001 started in a bar, and here you are 26 years later, it's still going on.
Yeah.
Is that how normal is that for any type of case to go on that long in the field of law?
These types of cases, there's a lot of, the way that the laws, and again, I don't want to make it too boring, but there's a lot of claims against, like Iran, for example, for supporting Hezbollah. They're supporting the Palestinians. And so there's a lot of claims that have been going on and on and on forever. And you have issues of governmental immunity, sovereign immunity, and, kind of the underlying thing is, well, if we start suing all these foreign governments, then they're going to start suing us. So we came up with it's a foreign sovereign immunity. Basically, there's a couple nations that are on an exception to the sovereign immunity list. So, like North Korea is still on it.
Okay.
Iran is still on it. Iraq is not on it anymore. So there's a couple, quote, states that you can do it with, but they're very, very long process cases. But no, most cases, like your standard, somebody falls on a banana peel. That case is done in a year.
Right.
Okay. So with the Maduro thing happening right now, how long is that process going to take?
I don't know. There's going to be I don't do criminal law, but I know enough about the way that the immunity of leaders of nations go. I think that you're going to see a ton, rather than just kind of do the whole speedy trial thing.
Yeah. Like
James Comey wanted, for example. He's like, no, let's just roll. And then that thing got kicked out. But I think there's going to be a lot of motions filed by Maduro's team to, limit his exposure.
Right.
It's his wife, too, in there, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, she may have a different set of problems because I don't know what her role was in the government, but she's likely not going to have the same protections that he does. And then again, if, they're couching it as narco-terrorism, maybe that's really not an official duty of the Venezuelan government. Maybe, who knows? Again, you got to see how it develops. But I think you're going to find that there's going to be a lot of jumping up and down about U.S. versus Nixon.
Yeah.
In that one.
Did your history minor definitely help with law? And obviously I can tell you're very interested in just facts and historical stuff. Did you enjoy your history minor and studying
Oh yeah,
that?
it was cool. I think I did my paper on the ME-262 though.
Okay. Okay. And then one other case I want to talk about specifically is versus Cessna. You reached a settlement with them on a faulty seat, I think it was.
Well, that was my dad. That was 40 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just I saw obviously read the headline, but could you tell us the details of that case?
Yeah. So that was a case that happened. It was I think a 172. They were landing in Cape May, and the problem with at least the design defect in that aircraft, and it's important anytime you're flying, like you're at Embry-Riddle, right?
Yes, sir.
Like you secure the seat before you take off, right? The problem with the track and even on the 182 we have out here, it has a problem. They make like locks that you can put in there now, but it's a aluminum track, right? Mm-hmm. With a steel pin. Well, what's a harder metal?
The steel.
Right. So what's the steel going to do to the hole in the aluminum track?
It's going to eat away.
It's going to oval it.
Yeah.
And so if the seat isn't really secure, then the seat, if you're doing a go around or something, the seat can slip back. So what happened was, and this was known, I don't remember, I don't know the specifics, but I believe that there was about 5 previous accidents, something like this, that Cessna was aware of.
With the same case? It was
the same design.
Okay.
The same design. Now that Cessna's from '65 out there. The modern ones, I don't know if they fixed it. I'm sure they have. But so what happened was, the fellow was coming in to go around. A guy named Joe Guarnier was in the back, and it was like one of the 18-year-old kids. And the pilot was taking all the kids for a ride in the airplane, and he was coming. I think he was landing on runway 19 at Cape May. Had to do a go around or something like that. But in the meantime, added power, plane pitched up, seat slipped back, and the guy pulled the yoke, and it pulled up, stalled, and crashed because the seat went back.
What do you think the most common misconception is in like aviation crashes? Because you see a big crash makes headlines and so many people freak out, but there's all the statistics about it being, 10 times safer than a car, any other mode of transportation. What do you think the most common misconception is?
Misconception by who?
Like the public on aviation and safety, because it is the safest mode of transportation.
It is. One of the things that, when you're watching the news, especially around the holidays or when that shutdown had happened, and, everybody's barking about missed flight or this and that, one of the things that I think the biggest misconception is that, the airlines can only operate when the weather conditions are permissible. Now the planes have gotten better and better, so they can handle more icing. They can handle lower clouds. They can do all that other stuff. But there's some times where the weather's so bad that the airport gets shut down. I mean, sometimes Chicago is just, you just can't get in there.
Right.
And so people are sore because they missed their flight, which I get it. But I think that just the operations of, the reality that we are still limited by our environment is something that people seem to forget.
Yeah,
absolutely. What would you
and then
say?
people are like, I don't know, I saw something the other day, like somebody's curling her hair and they're in the plane, or some dude's loaded and he's picking a fight, or,
Would you say general aviation too is like a separate story than, the commercial airlines? Because I'm just thinking, like, you in general aviation, you have, for lack of a better term, like less experienced people flying. So like if I were to take my friend Leo up, I mean, he's much more in danger than if he were to go on an airliner. So I think that's a big misconception too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that the training, there could be better training with spin stalls rather than, stall, but just teach people how to fly an airplane.
Right.
And they'd be better off. But I think that, look, we can get really crazy deep into this. There's that Dunning-Kruger effect. I don't know if they teach that down there.
No, I've not heard of that.
Punchline is that the less you know, the more you think you know. And the more you know, the less you think you know. And there's a transition where, people will do things just because they don't know any better, but they think they just don't know enough that they don't know.
Right.
So they just assume they can do it. And that's around 500 hours, I think. And then around 1,500 hours, there's kind of a cocky thing where, I get homeitis, or, I can scud run, I can do it. And around 5,000 hours, I think there's another peak where people are just, sloppy.
Yeah.
But I think generally, it's the people that I see flying around here do a nice job.
Yeah.
And I think as long as the instructors can remind people that they are subject to their environment, that the weather is not controllable by us, and that it's changeable. And as long as you're smart, and like I said early on, if you stay ahead of things, general aviation is remarkably safe. Now, the one thing that like, for example, I know that there was a plane that crashed at Lancaster. I guess the door opened.
Okay.
And
how long ago was that?
That was maybe like a year ago or so,
Okay,
and there was a crash. Sometimes when you have an emergency with a general aviation aircraft, the thing that does separate them from the military and from airline transport pilots and airlines is that they have simulators, and or they just have tons of training, and they go through scenarios over and over and over. It's great. It's fine to crash a simulator.
Mm-hmm.
So the average GA pilot doesn't have that luxury.
Right.
So when all of a sudden something bad starts happening, I would imagine, I haven't seen the statistics, but I can imagine that there's an increased incidence of bad outcome given an emergency in the GA community as opposed to, airlines or military.
That's a good point.
Right. Did you see that crash a couple weeks ago with Greg Biffle?
Yeah,
NASCAR
I did see
guy?
that, yeah.
Yeah, that was tragic. I guess I think it was like a citation or something.
Yeah, it was an early citation.
Yeah, fire. I know. Yeah, right before Christmas, which is unfortunate. I know. Well, I'm not a big NASCAR fan. Are you at all?
No, I don't really want
Yeah, but yeah. Speaking of cars and that, I want to ask about the bikes in the hangar. So I can obviously see you're a big bike guy. There's so many out there. Can you tell us about that? And does that love kind of go hand in hand? The mechanical love, planes, bikes, all of it.
Yeah, so when I was 7 years old, my sister's got a little Honda 50, and I got a Schwinn 3-speed, and I was like, this is bullshit. I'm taking the 50. And so I've been riding really since then, and then I was racing a lot in the 80s.
Really?
Yeah, before college, and then college I got all nerdy with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I started getting back into racing, 25, maybe 30 years ago.
Okay.
And, I have a couple more modern, bikes, but most of my bikes are older. I have all the bikes I had when I was a kid. I guess there's something wrong with me. But, I love, I always used to build models. I love, just building things. And so I'll find an old, right now I'm working on a 1986 Honda CR125. And I've spent really the last year just stripping it down to nothing, getting the frame powder coated, finding some trick parts that are really hard to find. And I got to replace the coil because one of the wires broke. But it's I just picked up the suspension, and you know, I race the 50 and the 55 plus class now in motocross.
Really?
That's awesome.
Where'd you do that at?
Oh, there's all over the place.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, all just, you know, basically from Maryland up maybe through Massachusetts or something, and some places in New York. Yeah, but so still love racing.
That's awesome.
And then we've just got a bunch of guys that are all from various aspects, but all kind of grew up just digging motocross.
Nice. Are you a 2-stroke or a 4-stroke guy? Do you have a preference?
Well, I have a KTM 350,
Okay.
the modern one, which is I mean, it's silly. It's a bitchin' bike. But I love my 2-strokes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I have, I think I have like maybe probably 12 or 13 CR125s and of all different years.
Jeez.
I've got, you know, a bunch of 250s. I have a couple 500s.
Do you know how many are out there right now?
I don't know.
Yeah.
20 something.
Have did you ever get into like the car world off of bikes and planes, somewhere in the middle in the car world, or no?
I mean, I picked up a GT3 recently.
Really?
The idea is that we're going to, you know, do some track days.
Yeah. Do you have anywhere in particular you go for track days or anything?
I got it before the end of the year last year. So I've driven it a little bit, but I'm trying to keep the miles down on it, and I like to get a trailer for it just because it's one of those things. It's probably better not to drive it everywhere.
Right.
992, 991.
It's a 992.1.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, they're great cars. I have a little 2000 Boxster, very far away from a 992 GT3, but I love it.
I don't know, dude. I bet that's a great track car though.
It's a fun little car to rip around. It's definitely it's fun for sure.
Yeah.
But so tell us about the planes you currently own out here. You mentioned the Spitfire. I don't see it out there.
No, it's gone.
Okay, it's gone.
Yeah, it was awesome. I've always loved the later Mark Spitfires.
Okay.
And in, I guess 2011 or 2012, a buddy of mine in the UK had just finished it. It was a Mark 18, so it had the big Griffin engine and the 5-blade prop and bubble canopy, and it was badass. So I bought that. We had it for a couple of years, and Rich, who has been taking care of everything, you know, for me forever, and he's the best at this. And he was able to figure out a bunch of things on just unknowable. I mean, nobody works on these. I mean, there's a handful of people that do it, especially the old Spitfires with that Griffin engine. And it was a beast. I mean, it made like 2,200 horsepower. And it was awesome. And the prop turned the opposite direction.
Really?
So on takeoff, yeah, it's full left rudder. As a matter of fact,
I think I've heard that.
You can only go to and it's in boost. It's not in manifold. So,
really?
Yeah. So it's weird, and it's very British. It's like, so you can only go to about half power on takeoff.
Okay.
Because otherwise the engine, you can't keep it straight because the rudder's not big enough. So you get the tail flying, maybe get to like 50 knots or so, and then you go above 7 pounds of boost. I forget right now, maybe up to like 12 or so, maybe a little bit more. I'm forgetting exactly. But you've got the stick grip in your right hand, and your throttle's over here. But then to bring the gear up, you got to switch hands. You take off, and you're climbing at like 3,500 feet a minute. And then you have to put your left hand on the stick grip. It's a spade.
Okay.
So you have to grab it like this, and then you got to put it over here, and it's about a 13-second process to get the gear up.
Jeez.
Meanwhile, you're rocketing it.
That's crazy.
I mean, it's, you know, and it's got air. Air did the guns. Air did the brakes. It was wacky. So we had it for a while, but then I got rid of it. Just because, you know, it was cool, but it was
right.
It was just, I mean, like brakes were like $10,000 a piece.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
kind of like, you know, come on. There's only 3 of these that are flying.
Okay.
Of this mark. Yeah, so we got rid of that. For a while, we had a second SNJ, but that just went out to California. So right now, I've got PT-22, that old Ryan. I bought a Stearman a little while ago from a fellow that had owned it since like 1991. He was like super well known in the Stearman community, so it's kind of cool that we were able to get that one. And then, yeah, we got the 182, the SNJ, the Mustang, and then I have I got to go over to France because I'm getting a new TBM 980.
No way.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
Yeah, so hopefully I can get over there to, you know, fly back with the ferry pilot.
Okay.
Because it's got that G3000 and
yeah,
Yeah, like when I used to have an 850, and I sold that for this. And when I picked that thing up, I had to use my iPhone to come back from Groton. Like I couldn't even figure out the G1000. So I knew it ultimately. I knew it, but I was like, how do I get, so I was like, I figured out the radios, and I just used my phone to come back.
How long was that flight?
From Groton, no, it was like 45 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't that bad, and the weather was fine. It was like today.
Yeah.
But I figure that with this G3000, it's all with, I don't know what the hell it is. So hopefully I can go over there and then fly back with them, and it'd be kind of cool unless there's funny things going on in Greenland now. But it'd be an opportunity to learn that system and learn the airplane.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So is the Mustang still kin in your eyes? Is it the favorite one to fly?
Yeah, pretty much.
You said the brakes on the Spitfire were 10,000. Is the Mustang cheaper?
There's more parts availability, and the other thing that's good about it is, like I said, there's, Roush from Roush Racing, who does all NASCAR stuff. They make amazing. They build the engines, they make the parts, all that stuff. So there's enough parts around that supply and demand prices aren't as bad. The real P-51 wheel brakes for the Mustang are harder to find, but we've just been collecting parts for forever.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we have the stuff, but it can get expensive, sure.
Yeah. How many are still active flying?
I think at least 150.
Okay. So then can you tell us how you got into, you have the planes, getting into aerobatics, starting to perform at air shows, all of that stuff?
So with the SNJ, it was kind of an easy transition. There were some other guys. So we were at Northeast Philly Airport forever, and then I moved out here in 2006 and built this place. Around Northeast Philly and kind of North Jersey, there was a old aerobatic team called the Six of Diamonds. The Six of Diamonds were initially four guys who did a formation shows, but really non-aerobatic. At the end, one of the guys did a loop. That was it.
Okay.
And then my dad started flying with them. Ed Shipley, who used to be based here, had a T-6, and he flew with them. Dan Calderall, who used to be over by Flying W, airport called Red Lion, which is different now, had a T-6, and some other guys. And then the team went to 4, and then it was 6 T-6s, and then we started adding formation aerobatics to that. And the T-6 was just the best platform to learn warbird aerobatics. It was at the point where we were putting 300 hours a year on the airplane. We would come out here we'd take off at sunset and use this city skyline as the horizon, just do formation loops and stuff at night. Put the landing lights on and just so you can see the other planes.
That's crazy.
And then it's cool though. And then Shipley and I started shifting it into the Mustangs. And then we started a team in the early 90s called the Four Horsemen, which was 4 P-51s. And then one of them, Vlado, who since passed, poor guy, he got killed in a Mustang called Baby Duck maybe 10 years ago.
It's a crash, obviously.
Yeah. And then, but it was 3 of us for a bit, and then we were 2, and now we're kind of back to 3. And it's been difficult logistically with the guys in the present team just to get together because everybody's all over the place. But we're but that's that. And then in 96, Shipley and I had developed a reasonable enough friendship with the guys at Langley that we started that U.S. Air Force Heritage Flight Program.
Okay.
So that was initially we did the first unofficial one at Shaw Air Force Base in the fall of 96. And then we got it approved. We put Yeager, Borman, Anders, Bud Anderson was in it, kind of symbolically, but they did it. Like Yeager did 1 or 2 of them. And then Frank Borman and Bill Anders, who were the Apollo 8 guys, were in it. They both had Mustangs, and so they were in it for a while, and they were awesome. We did the first official one. There's a couple first official ones, but we were the first one tasked to go with the F-16 team to Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, and at the 50th anniversary of the Air Force in the summer of 97. And then from there, every year we go out to Davis Mountain for training. I'm heading out there in, I guess, the end of February for about a week.
Nice.
And then we just, get in the air show season from that.
For sure. What does the training consist of every year?
So although it's not 100% like this. The idea is that every other year, the demo pilot from, say, the F-16, F-35, F-22, or was the A-10, they're standing that down. They stood that down. So from those teams, the pilots rotate every 2 years. Now, they've been staying on longer. Like Raz, who was the F-22 guy, was stayed on for a couple of years, and I'm pretty certain the F-16 guy is going to be going on for another year. I think the F-35 team is swapping. So when we get out there, part of the training is getting those pilots, he or she, aware of, the dissimilar nature of flying. It's one thing to fly an F-35 with another F-35 or with a Raptor, but it's something else if you got it with a P-40 that, is having a hard time maintaining 230.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So the training goes that way. Training goes with us. I mean, it's basically been the same group for a while. But it's just, Davis Monthan is huge. That's, where the boneyard is. But it's a 13,000 foot runway and lots of ramp space. So it's a great place for everybody to kind of get together, get their heads back into it, and then just plan for the season. And I kind of cover like a 500-ish mile radius northeast. They've got Steve-O Hinton, Southern California, Greg Anders, Bill's son, is up in Northwest.
Okay.
And there's a couple guys in Texas, and so that's just the idea is if we can overlap enough to cover the shows that different aircraft will be available. And we're fortunate that Dan Friedkin's in it, and he's got everything from P-40s to, he's got 7 Mustangs, I think. He's got an A model Mustang. He's got an A-36I bomber variant. He's got F-86s. He's got a couple F-5s. So it really is added to the program that, the crowd can see, say, a F-35 flying with an F-5, P-51, and an F-86.
For sure.
Or something like that. So it's been a good program. And the idea is for recruiting and retention purposes.
Yeah.
And if you can spread the Air Force's message at a lot of shows that maybe the Thunderbirds won't meet, like a small show, hypothetically Ocean City, New Jersey. Like the Thunderbirds would play at Atlantic City or fly at Atlantic City for a while. They wouldn't come to like a small place like Ocean City, or Ocean City, Maryland. But that's a big place, so they'll have the demo teams. But there are a lot of places that the Air Force couldn't otherwise connect with.
Okay.
So if they can send a demo team, and then if you can also have one of the vintage aircraft, even if it's through F5 vintage, the crowd gets an opportunity to hear about the history of the Air Force, and it kind of tells a story. And I think it has had a good impact on recruiting and retention purposes. So that's kind of the idea.
Without a doubt. What's the most eye-opening thing been for you flying next to these modern planes like a F-22, F-35, and the Mustang?
They're just cool, man.
Yeah.
Like I'll like, typically it'll work. Like say I'll launch before they'll do their demo. They'll do their solo demo. And I'm normally holding about 4,000 feet above the ground behind the crowd. You can just see the Raptor the Raptor never goes above 250 knots in its demo, except for when it's doing like a high-speed pass or whatever. But for all the maneuvers, the point is to show that it's power and agility. So like when it does a tail slide, like I'm just orbiting at 4,000 feet, and I see it go, and then it just starts to go backwards, and I'm watching it, and I'm just going up and down the horizon.
Jeez.
And you can't. There's nothing on. Once they turn the transponder off, you don't see it.
Right.
Not that, but I can, I follow it. But that's cool. And then we've been fortunate to push through. So far, the planes that have been involved, most of them are off now. We've been the F-15C, the single ship. Later, they added the Strike Eagle out of Seymour Johnson, which is the E model. We were there for the first Raptor involvement. We were there for the first F-35 involvement. We were there with the A-10. We were there when the A-10 stepped off. And, of course, the F-16's always been through there.
Right. Have you had any close calls during air shows?
Yeah, on occasion. But, we brief and we walk through it, and we're thoughtful and we practice. And, fortunately, it's been pretty reasonable.
Good.
There are times where, that was a little close.
Right.
No midders or anything, no.
Yeah.
How long is your solo demo in the Mustang?
My solo is about 8 minutes,
Okay.
and the Horseman demo is around 12.
Okay. Do you have that demo down pat? Like you fly that blind at this point? Like is it the same demo every year?
I've been doing the same sequence. I think this is one of the things that helps minimize mistakes. It's all muscle memory. I do the same thing. You know, depending on the environment, like I may come in behind the crowd and then pull up and do a quarter clover leaf and then start the show that way. Or if there's some issue, I can just come in from the right. But I basically do these in same flow.
Okay.
And it's also one that is the most energy management, comfortable for me. So there's, I know that I'm, because whenever you're doing an aerobatic demo, unless you've got an airplane that's close to 1-to-1, you're going to be losing energy.
Right.
So you just have to be mindful of what sequence does the best job of either minimizing energy loss or in your repositions, minimizing the time that you're not in front of the crowd.
Okay.
So I think we've kind of come up with that. We made some mods to the beginning of the Horseman demo, but doesn't really change it. Like we do a Cuban 8 in formation.
Okay.
We were thinking about maybe starting with that first as opposed to having it in the middle, because that's a very it's a very dynamic maneuver that if you're not careful, you can lose a ton of energy like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you don't get airsick anymore, correct?
No, once I learned how to fly, I stopped.
Yeah.
Technically, what's the hardest maneuver you've had to learn in the Mustang?
Landing it.
Really? Why is that?
I had maybe 200 hours total time when I started flying it, and that's normal. I mean, the fellows that were, like, we were very friendly with Yeager, and Yeager would tell us stories that his first flight in a Mustang was on a mission.
Okay.
These guys
Jeez.
they were rushing them into things.
It's insane.
It's just, you think about it, and we're fortunate that we could replace our pilots, so that's why we kept going strong. Now the Germans were great. I'm answering your question, but the Germans were great because they were training in the Spanish Civil War and all that. And the Japanese initially were good, but then they weren't able to replace the pilots. They didn't have the training that we did. But that's a typical time period to start flying fighters. And my dad had given me a pretty good ride in the T-6. He was a good pilot. But the thing was, when you come up back on the power, the prop goes flat, and that prop's this big break out there, and you just don't appreciate the sink.
Mm-hmm.
And next thing you know, you're sinking like crazy, and you bang it. Oh, shit.
Yeah.
So that, in terms of, even though that's just like you just landing it, but for like a new kid who really hadn't developed his peripheral vision, which is one of the things you have to teach yourself. Flying tail draggers is really have excellent peripheral vision. Okay. You can't see over the nose when you're taxiing. When you're flaring, you don't see, it's all side, and so with very poorly developed peripheral vision and just not an appreciation of just the sink rate that wing plus with the prop gives you. Yeah, that was a bitch.
Wow.
But the other, it's a magnificent airplane. It'll kill you real quick. I've spun it a whole bunch, and I don't like doing it because there's a nose case on the engine and the prop weighs 500 pounds. So when you start spinning it, it doesn't need it. You don't need to do that to it. She's 80 some years old. But yeah, and also I remember when when I was going to solo it, I was down at Cape May, and my pop was like when he soloed me at Northeast Philly, we're on runway 24, the Juliet taxiway, and it was March, it was windy, I was doing a shitty job, and he said, hold on, and next thing I know, he was getting out of the airplane, he said, go, and so I had to solo, I was like, shit, so took off, and I did 3 good takeoffs and landings, even though the weather's, was very windy. And I came back, the airport police is there, and he's fighting with the airport police in Northeast Philly, and I hear him saying, they're like, what the hell are you doing? He's like, how the hell else am I supposed to solo my kid?
That's awesome.
But when we were at Cape May, he told me to get in the Mustang, and I wasn't comfortable. And I remember sitting down the runway, and I was watching the temperature gauge go up, because it's water cooled. And the engine that was in there, the max temperature is really like 115, the way the heads were. And I saw it getting to like 113, 114. And I was like, I either got to taxi back or I got to go.
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck it.
That's awesome.
Go. Because I wouldn't hear the end of it.
Yeah.
And it worked out fine, But yeah, that's, That's the thing about the airplane. You know, here's what I tell everybody: every airplane that you're in is trying to kill you.
That's interesting.
It is. Think about it.
Yeah.
And it's designed to, you know, they're designed to be safe and all that other stuff, but they don't care. And no matter, I mean, I've been flying that airplane for 35 years. I've got 3,000 plus hours in the thing.
Yeah.
And it could care less.
Right.
You know?
Right.
That 182 out there is, and what did one of the Blackbird, either test pilots or one of the SR-71 pilots says, you know, Piper Cub goes just fast enough to kill you.
Okay.
So you just have to be really careful and thoughtful and respectful.
Yeah.
You know, that you don't take anything for granted.
Without a doubt. Mr. Zach wanted me to ask you the question, why do you fly tail draggers?
Because all I have.
That's a good point. There you go. That's our answer, Zach.
No, they're cool. I mean, it's cool. It's just it's a especially these planes. Like if you like the PT-22, for example, like you can see the designs that were thought to be a really good idea in the late 30s that just were not.
Yeah.
You know, like the forward link landing gear and
Yeah.
all that other stuff. And they're just, it's a time gone past.
Right.
Absolutely.
You know, and I mean, like Decathlon, Tabria, I mean, I had an extra 300 for a while, or 330, which was super cool. But there's something about the old stuff. Like when my buddy Brady and I went to pick up the PT-22 in the summer, we picked it up in Rockford, Illinois, a little bit west of Chicago, northwest of Chicago. And it took us like 7.5 hours flying time and like 5 fuel stops to get back. Because if we're lucky to go 90.
Yeah.
Wow.
But it's just like, it's open cockpit and it's, you know, it's bitching.
Yeah,
for
yeah.
sure. Have you been in any modern fighters like F-18, F-16, anything?
Been in a F-15 a couple times and
Wow.
F-16 2 or 3 times. And one of the flights, because every year at Heritage we can, if we want to go for a familiarization ride, we can. I don't anymore. I'd rather have the ground guys get it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but back down at Shaw in '96, Shipley and I got to do a 2-ship F-16s. We got to fight
That is
formations.
awesome.
Yeah, it was cool.
That is awesome.
Yeah, when we launched, Shaw's runway is about 9,000 feet long, and this was one of the big engine Vipers. Brake release, full power, good acceleration. By the end of the runway, we were pushing through 400 knots.
It's insane.
Pitch vertical and accelerated going up because we didn't have any bags on.
Wow.
And like rolled out at 18,000 feet like that.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it was cool. It was like 400, just like 440, 450.
Jeez.
Yeah, it was cool.
So how does flying like a modern fighter like that, how does that even compare to like in 80 years the evolution from a Mustang to like an F-16? Like what was that experience like?
Well, I've got time in the F-86,
Okay.
which is cool. That was one of the earlier jets.
Right.
Again, magnificent airplane. It's very North American, just like the P-51, because that's really the next fighter that North American made. It was a great airplane. I mean, it's super cool. But the big thing about the jets, at least as far as I'm concerned, especially the older jets, they burn an extraordinary amount of gas.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, it's crazy. Like the Mustang, like I was burning 63 gallons an hour coming back from Pittsburgh today. 120-ish or so on takeoff. But you can flight plan, 60-ish. That means about a gallon a minute. So it kind of helps with the brain. I mean, I think the Sabre is burning like 400 gallons an hour or something.
Oh my gosh.
You know, and I'm like,
Cha-ching,
what am I?
cha-ching.
Yeah, right. You know, and I got a young family, and like,
Yeah.
what the hell's wrong with me? And then I'm like, if I can't fly this thing at least 100 hours a year, I don't want to know anything about it.
Right.
And I don't know, what's 400 times X times 100? It's costlier than a divorce lawyer.
What does your wife think about you flying? Is she comfortable with
No,
it?
she's cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
she's awesome. She was there when I was soloing all the planes, at least around during that time. Yeah.
Do you take her up?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, like a PT-22, we were like putzing around.
Yeah.
Ocean City, and
That's
she likes the. I mean the TBM, for example, is more comfortable.
Yeah.
And the Mustang can get noisy, but it's.
That's good.
Have you owned any other jet aircraft? You said the F-86.
I had a ride with one of Dan's F5s. He's got a CF5D, which is basically a 2C T-38.
Okay.
Had a ride in that, but I was in the back and it was so hazy I really couldn't. But I've kind of made a decision. Like, I got enough hobbies. Like, I love flying the Mustang, that kind of era plane. I can afford that gas. I like racing my dirt bikes. Like, I don't need to go and figure out.
Right.
Like, I don't need to go out, because the F5, the wing's different. It's all just, there's no doubt with proper training I could do it fine. But I think,
yeah,
I don't, it's a bitchin' airplane.
Yeah.
And it's very cool to watch it from the ground.
Yeah, absolutely.
So my question is, how do you manage your time between the bikes, aviation, law? What's a daily day in your life look like, a week, in terms of time management? Curious.
Well, you can't force anything. And the older I've got, I wake up before sunrise, and I'll go sit out. Like, I love the cold. Like, I have a place in Ocean City, and I just go out in the ocean.
Jeez.
I love
You love that.
I love the, cold exposure is just very, very important. So, and heat exposure too. But my typical morning is I'll get up, I'll go outside before, and I won't look at my phone. I get my dog. I've got a awesome shepherd. And then I have a little fire pit. And I just make a fire, and then I'll just sit out there with water and a coffee, and we'll watch the sunrise. And that's really important because you need that. Like that's why I don't look at the phone first, because the phone all that LED stuff just screws up your midbrain. It doesn't allow you to reset your circadian rhythm. It fucks up your hormones, the whole thing. So I make a point of just getting morning sunlight, and then I'll either lift or, ride my bike. I have a bike in the basement, and I do a lot of, I've done a couple Ironman recently.
Nice, very nice.
So I try to be very good with the sleep and very good with working out. And then that kind of makes it easier to just, that way, like, you're not scattered with adrenaline or cortisol or whatever. It's kind of cool. And then you just get to work.
Absolutely.
And then, you got to, you can't backfill. Like this argument I had right now, like if I just woke up in the morning and just prepared for it, I couldn't do it.
Right.
So you got to pace yourself.
For sure. I love that.
Yeah, just pace yourself and you can do whatever you want. I'm a, big a meathead as they come, and I somehow made it through Penn Medical School and Penn Law School. So
I love that. What's your biggest piece of advice to an upcoming aviator and someone looking to get into law in both aspects of your life?
Well, you got to be patient. Right. And you got to stay focused on yourself, because you're going to see, there's 7 deadly sins for a reason. There's greed, there's envy, there's all that other shit. You got to just recognize that time is going so fast. Even though you guys are young, you don't appreciate it. Just be cool. Don't be a dick.
Mm-hmm.
Like I teach at the law school. And one of my classes is called How Not to Be an Asshole.
Okay.
Because it's just don't be a dick.
Yeah.
And if you're respectful and, everything does this in life. There are times where you're jerking and you realize it, but you learn from it. And just be humble enough to accept, I really screwed that up. Oh, boy, I was a jerk there, rather than trying to deflect. Just own it.
Mm-hmm.
If you make a mistake, just own it. The first day of med school, the assistant dean was a guy named Fred Berg. And he goes, we're going to give you so much work, you're never going to be able to do it. Never. Right? So here's what I want you to do, because here's what I do. He goes, every day I take Fred's hour. I don't care it might be 2 a.m, it might be lunchtime. I take Fred's hour. And every day of the week I take Fred's day. It might be Wednesday, it might be Sunday. And the reason is that unless you pace yourself, you're never going to make it. And there's another expression, and I can't remember who said it, but the expression was in sum and substance. I can always get 12 months worth of work done in 8 months. Because the point is you can get more done in less time if you pace yourself. And then, the other thing is, and I don't want to get too stupid like this, but everybody's afraid of failure. Edison has a great quote. He's like, I've never failed. I just found 10,000 ways that didn't work. And so no matter what's going on, no matter how bad you feel, just, okay, it's failure is a learning point. Like, I know that the military does this generally, but the Mossad, I know, has a big point of saying when a mistake is made, rather than being like, oh, I screwed it up, they want you to think, and again, I'm going to get this all wrong, but basically the punchline is they want you to think data received, lesson learned. So you make a mistake, lesson learned.
Right.
Not make a mistake, oh, I suck,
Mm-hmm.
I'm this, I'm that. Just, I got it, and learn from it.
Right.
So that's,
Love it.
and you gotta screw up as many times as I have before you actually get to the point where it's like, it's okay to screw up.
Right.
For sure.
And at that point, I kind of like screwing up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The success is right around the corner. Guess if you keep messing up.
I love that. And then to wrap it up, I mean, you kind of just answered it for us, but we always ask our guests, what's your piece of advice to both of us? It can be life advice. It can be for this exact podcast. It can be whatever.
No, you guys are doing great. Just stay humble and stay focused, and make sure if you're not healthy physically, you're never going to be healthy spiritually, and if you're not spiritually healthy, you're never going to be physically healthy.
Love that.
And challenge yourself. That's why I did my first Ironman at 56. Now I can't run because I've got a rod in this leg, and I've my legs are from racing, but so I just do the swim and the bike. But and sometimes I can't even finish the bike because it's so just hard.
Yeah.
But
That's
I'm
good.
like, fuck it,
Yeah.
let's go.
Love that.
Jeez.
Cole, when's your next 100-miler?
I'm not doing another one for a while. Yeah, we got into running. I did a couple ultra races and taking a break now. Trying to put on some weight.
Yeah, that's good stuff to do though. Like my
It
son-in-law
is.
with that hat, he did the Moab 240.
Oh,
Get out of here.
Yeah.
that's the kin of the kin.
Yeah,
That one's
When did
crazy.
he do that?
a couple years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, he's in the Army now, but
Wow.
yeah, like we used to do all the Tough Mudders all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I got my son a fake ID because he was only 14 and he had to be 18 to do Tough Mudders, so I got him a fake ID to do that.
That's got to be the best reason I've heard to get
Yeah.
a fake ID.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Love that. All right, Jim. Well, thank you very much for being here. I appreciate you letting us in our space here and for spitting your wisdom on us today.
Yeah, sure thing.
So, guys, Motive Podcast, Leo Kosach, Cole Cuccinata, and Jim Beasley, thank you for being here. Peace.
Peace.